I should have looked away when his eyes lingered on me, but instead I smiled. Not because I meant to, it just happened. And from that moment on, everything I thought I understood about love age and boundaries started to blur. You won't believe what happened next, because even I didn't expect to feel that way. Not at this stage of my life. If you've ever kept a secret you couldn't say out loud, or felt something you thought you weren't supposed to, this story might remind you that you're not alone. Before we dive in, hit like and subscribe if you're ready for a story that might just make you feel something again. Sometimes the heart doesn't ask permission, it just remembers how to feel. My name is Linda. I'm 52 years old, a widow and a mother. I live in a quiet town tucked into the hills of southern Oregon in the same cedar-shingled house where I raised my daughter Emily. It's not a big place, but it holds a lifetime of memories, some beautiful, some painful, and many just silent. My husband passed away 5 years ago, a sudden heart attack. One minute, he was complaining about the coffee being too cold, the next he was gone. Since then, life has become quieter than I ever thought possible. Emily moved out not long after to attend college upstate. I understood. She needed space to grow, to become her own woman. I wanted that for her. And as for me, I adjusted. Or at least I told myself I did. I went back to tending my garden. I volunteered at the library on Saturdays. I cooked too much food for one person. I filled my days with busy work and told myself I was fine. Some days I even believed it. Emily visited when she could, and sometimes she brought her boyfriend Luke. He was a nice young man, polite, helpful, always offering to carry groceries or fix something around the house. He was the kind of man you feel safe around, the kind you hope your daughter ends up with. So when Emily told me she'd be going away for a long weekend with friends, I didn't think twice when she said Luke might stop by to help with the leaky faucet. He practically lives here anyway. She laughed. He knows where everything is better than I do. I smiled. At the time, I thought it was sweet. I had no idea what that weekend would become, or what I'd discover about him and about myself. It started with the garden. The morning after Emily left, Luke stopped by with a bag of groceries she'd apparently asked him to bring over. I was pulling weeds when he arrived, wearing an old t-shirt and jeans, his usual easy smile on his face. "Thought I'd check on that faucet," he said, holding up a small toolbox. "You're too kind," I replied, "but let me finish out here first. The garden's been a mess since spring." "Then I'll help," he said simply. No hesitation, no awkwardness, just kindness. We spent the better part of the morning outside clearing away leaves, pruning rose bushes, laughing when a stubborn root nearly flung me backward onto the grass. Luke caught my elbow just in time. His hands were strong but gentle, and I felt a twinge of something unexpected. We talked mostly about Emily. He told me about how they'd met, how she once spilled coffee on him during a group project in college. He laughed about it with a fondness that was genuine. I listened. I asked questions. And slowly, without realizing it, I stopped thinking of him as just my daughter's boyfriend. After a while, we took a break. I made lemonade. We sat in the kitchen, sweat on our brows, shoes, dirty hands scratched, and yet it felt comfortable, familiar almost. "You know," I said, sipping from my glass, "it's been years since anyone's helped me in the garden." Luke looked at me, really looked at me. "You shouldn't have to do it alone," he said. It was a simple thing to say, but it stayed with me. Long after he'd gone home that evening, I found myself thinking about it, about him, not in any inappropriate way, at least not yet. But there was a warmth, a softness to his presence that lingered, a sense of being noticed, of being cared for. Over the next 2 days, Luke came by a few more times. He fixed the faucet, changed the air filters, even helped move an old dresser out of the garage. I didn't ask, he just offered. We didn't plan anything. He would simply show up with a quiet smile and a tool in hand, and somehow we'd end up working side by side talking about nothing and everything. But it was different now. I could feel it. It was in the way he lingered a little longer in the doorway when he said goodbye, the way he laughed more easily when I teased him, the way his gaze held mine for just a second too long before turning away. I told myself it was all in my head, but I also noticed the way my heart beat faster when I heard his car pull into the driveway, how I checked the mirror before opening the door, how I caught myself hoping he'd stay just a little longer each time. One afternoon, he came by with a bag of groceries Emily had supposedly asked him to bring. She texted later surprised. "Did he really stop by again?" she asked, laughing through the phone. "Geez, he loves being at that house more than I do." I laughed too, but it felt hollow. That evening, we ended up in the living room. I was folding laundry on the couch. He sat nearby, sipping tea. A quiet moment stretched between us, not awkward, just charged. He leaned back, arms stretched across the couch, his fingers just inches from mine. He looked relaxed, at ease. I, on the other hand, felt like every nerve in my body was suddenly awake. And then he turned to me, slowly, his expression unreadable. For a second, neither of us said a word. I felt the air change, something invisible shifting between us. He smiled, soft, unsure. And I looked away. "I should check on the laundry," I murmured, standing too quickly. "Sure," he said gently, as if he knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every glance, every word, every second of silence that had suddenly become louder than any sound I'd heard in years. Something had changed, not just in him, in me. It happened on the third night. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. I wasn't really planning to eat when the doorbell rang. Luke stood there, holding a small bag of groceries. "Forgot to drop these off earlier," he said, smiling sheepishly. "Figured I'd swing by on my way home." "Come in," I said, trying to sound casual. My voice was too even, too prepared. He stepped inside. The house felt quieter than usual, though nothing had changed. It was the same soft lamplight, the same old radio playing jazz in the background. And yet, everything felt different. We sat in the living room like we had before. This time, there was no laundry to fold, no garden dirt on our hands, just the quiet hum of the evening and two people trying not to notice what had become impossible to ignore. He sat close, not inappropriately, but closer than before. His arm stretched along the back of the couch, his hand just behind my shoulder, not touching, but near enough. We talked. I don't remember about what. I only remember how it felt. His laughter seemed softer. His pauses seemed longer. At one point, I turned to say something meaningless, probably, and our eyes met. This time, I didn't look away. He didn't either. The moment stretched, and then almost imperceptibly, he leaned in. Not much, just a shift, barely a breath, but I felt it like a wave. My pulse raced. My hands felt suddenly foreign to me, resting awkwardly in my lap. I forgot what I'd meant to say. His face was close now, still, waiting, not demanding, just waiting. I could feel the tension between us tighten, like a thread pulled taut. And for a heartbeat, I let it happen. I let the silence settle around us. I let myself feel what I hadn't let myself feel in years wanted seen alive. But then, I stood, too quickly. "Would you like some water?" I asked, my voice too loud. Luke blinked, pulled back, slightly nodded. "Sure." I walked into the kitchen on shaky legs, hands trembling just enough to make the glass clink against the sink. I stayed there longer than I needed to. When I returned, he was sitting upright, hands on his knees, eyes avoiding mine. I handed him the glass. He took it with a quiet thank you. We sat again with more space between us this time. The tension still hung in the air, but now it was mixed with something else, a silent agreement. That moment almost happened. And maybe that was all it was meant to be. A moment, almost. I thought that moment on the couch would be the end of it. After that night, Luke stopped coming around. Days passed, then a week. No calls, no texts, not even a drop-off or casual check-in. The house felt emptier than usual. I told myself it was good necessary. The distance would help us both reset. Emily came home the following weekend, full of stories and inside jokes from her trip. She looked happy, relaxed, glowing even. She didn't mention Luke. I didn't ask. We danced around his absence like it wasn't strange. But it was. Then almost 2 weeks after that night, I found Luke standing on my porch again. It was early evening. The light was soft and golden, casting long shadows across the yard. I opened the door, surprised and a little breathless. "Hi," he said. His voice was quiet. "Do you have a minute?" I stepped aside, and he walked in. He didn't sit. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the floor, like the words he needed might be hiding in the wood grain. "I'm not here to make things weird," he began. I need to be honest with you. About a few things." I said nothing. I waited. "Emily and I broke up," he said finally. I nodded slowly. I figured something had happened. "Yeah," he exhaled. "She met someone else during that trip. Some guy she knew from before. I found messages. She admitted it. Said she didn't mean for it to happen, but, well, it did." His voice didn't crack, but there was a sadness in it that sat heavy in the room. "I'm sorry," I said softly, and I meant it. He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "I didn't come here for sympathy." "Then why did you come?" A pause. "Then, because even when I was with her, I kept thinking about you." The words landed like a quiet storm in my chest, not loud, but powerful. "Luke, I know it sounds wrong. Maybe it is. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know." That night, on the couch, it wasn't just you. I felt it too. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. The room fell into silence, the kind that demands your full attention. I sat down. My knees needed a break from pretending I wasn't shaking. "This is complicated," I said. "I know. She's my daughter." "I know," he said again, softer this time. "And I won't come back if you ask me not to. I just couldn't carry it anymore, not without telling you the truth." He stood there still, not moving closer, not making demands. I looked at him, this young man I was supposed to know only through my daughter. And for a moment, I wondered what it might have been like if life had handed us a different story. One where time, age, and titles didn't get in the way. But this was our story. Imperfect, awkward, unwritten, and now exposed. I didn't speak right away. I couldn't. There was too much noise inside my head. Questions, doubts, longings that had no name. Part of me wanted to say something, anything, to reach out and pull him close. But the other part, the part that remembered who I was, who he had been to my daughter, stood very still. I finally broke the silence. "Luke," I said softly, "I believe you. I believe every word you just said." He nodded, and I won't lie to you what I felt that night. It was real. His eyes met mine, hopeful, waiting. "But that doesn't mean it's right," I added. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again, steady. "I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm not even asking for something to happen. I just didn't want to keep pretending." I looked at him, really looked, and I saw the ache behind his calm, the sincerity, the heartbreak, and the confusing tenderness that had brought him back to this house, to me. "You didn't ruin anything," I said, "but we both know we can't go any further. Not like this, even if we both want to." My voice was a whisper. "Especially if we both want to." We stood there, two people in the quiet of a home that had held too many stories, too many ghosts. I stepped forward and reached for his hand, not as an invitation, but as a goodbye. He held it gently, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. Then he let go. "Thank you," he said, "for being honest, for not pretending it didn't happen." I gave him a small, sad smile. Some moments aren't meant to be more than moments, but that doesn't make them any less real. He left without asking for more. I stood at the door for a long time after it closed. In another life, maybe, in a different story, but not this one. This one needed an ending that hurt a little, but held its dignity. Life went on, as it always does. Emily eventually told me about the breakup. She didn't go into detail, and I didn't ask for any. She seemed more annoyed than heartbroken, as if it had all been a chapter she was glad to close. "It just stopped working," she said one evening over tea. "He got weird, distant." I nodded, pretending not to know more than I should. After that, I saw less and less of Luke. Eventually, not at all. He didn't text. I didn't call. There were no awkward run-ins or long, lingering glances. Just quiet. And oddly enough, I was grateful, because the silence gave space for something else, reflection. There was no scandal, no betrayal, just a fragile human connection caught in the wrong moment. Sometimes I would think of him not as my daughter's ex, not even as a man I once nearly kissed, but simply as someone who had seen me, truly seen me. And I would wonder, if you felt something real, even for a moment, is that moment ever truly gone? Or does it live inside you somewhere, quietly shaping who you are? After I don't regret the boundary I kept, but I also don't regret the feeling that passed through me like sunlight slipping through a window I hadn't opened in years. No one else knew, and no one needed to. It was mine. A memory, not a mistake. A lesson, not a loss. And maybe, in some quiet corner of his heart, he carries it too. I didn't choose to feel what I felt, but I chose what to do with it. And that choice made all the difference. What happened between us wasn't wrong because of a moment. It would have been wrong if I let that moment define me. I've learned that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it's in the letting go, in knowing who you are, in choosing dignity over desire, and in remembering that even brief, unspoken connections can still be beautiful without needing to become something more. If you've ever stood at the edge of a feeling you couldn't explain, if you've ever carried something quietly because you knew it could never be said this story was for you. And if it touched something in you, I hope you'll share that with us. Have you ever loved someone you weren't supposed to, or had to let go of something real because it was the right thing to do? Tell me in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel a little less alone. And if this resonated with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for more real stories, honest, human, and quietly powerful.